Hello and welcome to the Strategic Bookkeeper Podcast. Today's episode, I feel like the title says it all, Practice Management Mastery, 5 Essentials to Run Your Bookkeeping Practice Like a Well-Oiled Machine. So whether you are a startup or whether you're in practice, this is going to be great. I'll see you in there. I'm Jeannie Savage, the Strategic Bookkeeper. I've been in practice for 14 years, but more importantly, 5 years in, I achieved a lifestyle practice. This means I scaled my business, could take my hands off the wheel, and draw a nice 6-figure income while being time rich. And that's what I call my dream on my terms. I was recently awarded Women in Finance Innovator of the Year, recognizing my book, my podcast, my program, and my impact globally. The Strategic Bookkeeper is my life's work, and the opportunity to help bookkeepers globally achieve the income and lifestyle that sets them free absolutely fills my cup. Please do connect with me on socials at the Strategic Bookkeepers Way private Facebook group or shoot me an email, hello@thestrategicbookkeeper.global. Okay, let's dive into these 5 essentials, and I will also connect to podcast episodes that I've done the last couple of months so that if you want to go back to those and combine what I teach you in those with this one, you can do that in order to work on your business rather than just in it. So we'll run through the 5. So 1, productivity that powers profit. Number 2, capacity management. Number 3, SOPs. That stands for Standard Operating Procedures, and preferably ones that actually work. Number 4, lead and manage, which we've covered off previously, but that one's important in this 5-step process, but also as an ecosystem, okay? Number 5 is weekly rhythm for continuous improvement, and it's what we call our better every week process. Absolutely key. Let's go through those now and connect them to some of my other content, which I want to talk about first. So in the last couple of months, we have covered a range of things that relate to bookkeeping practice management, okay? We've been doing a lot around the business administration and do the work stuff, as well as the win the work. I'm so passionate, and probably first and foremost, I like to work around brand marketing, selling, win the work. 1, because I love it. 2, because I'm really good at it. 3, because in my experience, the last 15 years running my practice, nobody on the planet in the bookkeeping coaching space is giving you what you really need to know, including the detail and the detail to make it all work. Okay. So that's why I really like presenting on brand marketing and selling. But over the last couple of months, you'll find a lot of episodes as you go back that relate to practice management, including things like the 7 foundations of a profitable and sustainable practice, what's holding you back. We have looked at episode 106, 5 ways to increase your revenue, is all about practice management essentials. And then episodes 107, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm looking at them right now. We dived into a lot of things to do with standard operating procedures, financial management, one of the big keys, also my process for hiring bookkeepers and how to onboard them as well. Okay, so there's a lot in the last couple of months that if you want to really dive into that practice management mastery, you can look at those episodes and listen to those. Okay. So now connecting that to what we're doing today, let's dive into this kind of 5 key points. All right. So productivity. This one will be quick and easy to go over because the best thing I can do for you here is to point you to my second book, the Bookkeeping Practice Blueprint, and the chapter called Getting It Done. If there is only one chapter that you read in that book, that is the one. Okay. And in there, I dive into productivity. Now, what I'm listing it here for, what I want you to do in terms of productivity is think about reserving time in your diary to work on business development, okay? Because as we dive into these 5 key points for practice management mastery, I want you to think about the fact that you need to, as the owner of your practice, make sure that you have a system to win work as well as do work. And for productivity, I'm talking about, in this instance, winning the work. Okay. Now, we know that bookkeepers generally, this is not their zone of genius. They always say that they don't like the marketing component of running a bookkeeping practice. When surveyed globally, it's the number 2 bugbear, just below getting paperwork out of clients. Okay. So one of the reasons I say do it first thing in the morning, it's the cake and the icing system. That goes a little like this. When you have a beautiful cake to eat, oftentimes the icing is the most indulgent part. This is just the theory, and that we want to eat the icing first. So for a bookkeeper, that means the easy, comfortable thing for us to do is to do the work. And beyond that, it's to dive into standard operating procedures. The way that we operate as bookkeepers is such that that's the stuff we want to focus on. Now, the win the work stuff is generally what bookkeepers want to avoid. So we call that the cake. We call the stuff you're comfortable with the icing, and the stuff you're not comfortable with the cake. So we say eat the cake first rather than the icing first. It's a funny analogy. If you're like me, I usually like cake more than icing, but you get the point, right? So that's why I tend to say, when it comes to the fact that you cannot avoid doing the work around brand marketing and selling, I recommend that you don't rely on yourself to, muster up the willpower to just do it. Rely on atomic habits. You probably have heard of that book. It's referenced in my book in this chapter, Getting It Done. Okay. So rely on atomic habits, rely on systems. You love systems. So rely on a system to put you on autopilot and kind of force you, right? So rely on the system to be your manager, to force you to do the work around brand marketing and selling by putting it in your diary for 2 hours a day, first thing in the morning. So before you actually go and do all the technical bookkeeping work or even anything around managing your team, you do the work around winning work, brand marketing and selling, okay? Now, I could go on about that one, but you've got so much that you can read or listen to, because all my books are audiobooks, because I build everything for the busy multitasking parent, just like me, so that I make it as easy as humanly possible for you to listen to my content, to learn, so that I make it easy for you to actually have success. It still requires lots of work, but I do everything I can to make it as easy as humanly possible. Okay. So you know exactly what to do with productivity related to winning the work, as we're talking about it today, and where to go to learn more. Okay. So number 2, capacity management. Now, capacity management and number 5 are the big ticket items today. So let's dive into capacity management. Now, this one is very simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. I talk about it most in my first book, The Strategic Bookkeeper. So what I'll tell you, this is what makes this a little bit linear, this 5-step. Once you win work, the first thing you need to do after that is make sure that you manage your capacity beautifully, perfectly. That's what we do. And it's actually really easy once the system is in place. Okay. So I will let you know that generally when bookkeepers join me inside my program, they are not managing their capacity well. And that means they're bringing on more work than they can handle. That simple. Okay. To manage your capacity means that you never bring on more work than you can handle. And that means that you are far more likely to keep your promises, which we talked about in the last episode. And that links to number 3, standard operating procedures. Okay. So the system to manage your capacity is quite simple. Let me explain it. When you're out there winning work and someone comes through and they say, okay, can you help me with the bookkeeping and beyond? And you conduct a needs analysis from the get-go. I'll explain what I do. So somebody calls me, the first thing I'm thinking is capacity. Literally, whenever someone wants to work with me, my brain goes capacity, 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 and I begin the capacity conversation from the get-go. And this does 2 things. Number 1, it is absolutely doing what I need to do in terms of, if I don't think capacity, I'm setting myself up to break promises. And the second thing it does is it helps me in the sales process, kind of accidentally, right? Because I'm talking capacity in order to keep my promise, but When I talk capacity and the fact that my capacity can and does change moment to moment, meaning that I may or may not have capacity to do their job, it takes in one of the pillars of persuasion, right? Which you can read about in that Bookkeeping Practice Blueprint book that I have published. And that pillar of persuasion is scarcity. So there are 6 pillars. You can read about them in the book, but scarcity is a massive sales and marketing thing. So when something is scarce, we tend to want it more, and it also helps us to act quickly, okay? When I start the capacity conversation with my prospective client, they know that they're going to have to act quickly in order to avoid ending up on my wait list. It also means that they see me as very, very high demand. That gives them proof. And that's another pillar of persuasion, okay? Jeannie's bookkeeping practice is popular. That means it must be really good. And if I don't book in soon, I'm going to miss out on the best person clearly because she's got no room for any more clients. Now, for me, that's not a sales tactic, okay? That is the byproduct of just talking about my capacity, which I learned in my first kind of decade as a bookkeeper in practice. Now, I will tell you that talking capacity is transformational. That's what 100% of bookkeepers inside my signature program tell me, okay? So capacity management, quite simple. Step 1, think about it and talk about it from the get-go in just a very authentic way, okay? Number 2, then naturally you want to be always looking at your diary. If it's just you, exactly the same thing. So when jobs come in, they go in our Google Diary as well as our job management system. And I can see the Google Diary for my staff as well. So there's my diary, the diary of my staff. I'm constantly looking at it. So we have these norms internally, which is standard operating procedures inside there. And the first one is live and die by your diary. So when somebody says, can you do my work? You're looking at your diary. Usually I'll say either at the moment, we're currently on wait list, but we try and keep our wait list down to 4 weeks. So generally by the time we do the needs analysis and maybe do the proposal for the work, et cetera, the wait list is less and everybody's happy to wait somewhere up to 4 weeks, right? But I let them know we're either on wait list or it looks to me like we're not currently on wait list, so we can likely fit their work in, or I'm not 100% sure. So I say, okay, let's proceed with the needs analysis, knowing that I just need to double check with my right hand to see if we're off wait list. Okay, so make sure that you're checking the diary. And then I let the prospective client know. So I always sell through a file health check first. And I let them know that if they press go straight away, we can likely do that for them in the coming 5 days, whenever it is. I might even say, on Thursday at this time, I'd love to book that in. If you press go quickly, let's lock that away. And then beyond that, when we're doing that first piece of project work, usually a catch-up rectification, the same thing occurs, but it's a bigger piece of work. So capacity management is even more important. So if they've moved ahead with the file health check and paid me for that, they're now a client. Then I say to the client, okay, we can absolutely do your catch-up rectification work. At the moment in my calendar, we can schedule that work to happen over the next 2 weeks. And our aim is always to get that work done in 2 weeks, okay? With the exception being, the delays and dramas that can happen in a catch-up, but all of that is made clear in our productized service. So I let that client know this is what it looks like, but I'm making sure I book that into the diary. So the minute the prospective client presses go on the file health check, it goes in the diary for staff to do, and it goes in the diary for the bookkeeper to catch up with that client to do the debrief. And then the minute the client presses go on the catch-up rectification, it goes in the diary as well. So that way, visually in our diary, we can see literally at a glance, do we have room or capacity for more work? Do we need to hire more people? Do we need to look at our client base and let some clients go? Whatever it is, capacity management is key, okay? So live and die by your diary. Now, moving on to number 3, standard operating procedures that actually work. I've given you a lot of episodes recently on SOPs, so we don't need to sit on this one very much. What I want to do is just connect capacity management to this one. When you don't manage your capacity well, you tend to break promises because you take on more work than you can handle and you miss deadlines. In the last episode, I talked about when we overpromise and underdeliver by 1%. So even if you're a day late, even if you are not technically late according to compliance deadlines, but your client is expecting you to do something by a date, every time you underdeliver by 1% or more, you're breaking a promise, you're fracturing trust, you're negatively impacting retention and advocacy and referrals and so on, okay? So very important. Business success is detail. I just really wanted to connect capacity management with standard operating procedures. And on the Bookkeeping Practice Blueprint one pager that you have that we drop into the show notes every episode, then you know that this one is right at the bottom under standard operating procedures. It says promises kept and communication. They're the two big keys, okay? So now that we've covered off that one, you absolutely need SOPs that actually work. And you understand I've done lots of content recently and you've got lots in my first book on that, The Strategic Bookkeeper. Now let's move on to number 4, lead and manage. Really easy because we covered this off in the last episode as well. But in terms of the 5 essentials for running your bookkeeping practice like a well-oiled machine, practice, management, mastery, lead and manage is one of those 5 things, okay? So don't be the nice guy manager and just listen to the last episode. But the reason I put it into rinse and repeat is because I'm presenting these practice, management, mastery points in a 5-step system. And it is a really important part of that linear process because once we are winning work, that was number 1, productivity to win work. Number 2, and we know that we have to manage our capacity because if you get that wrong, nothing else after that will work properly, okay? So we know I need to manage my capacity. And then number 3, I know I need SOPs, so standard operating procedures. Well, they're not going to be worth anything if you don't know how to lead and manage. So I want to just make sure you understand how they domino from one another. So lead and manage, easy peasy. You can refer to my last episode and my first book for that. Number 5 is what I'd like to go into just a little bit more. Number 5 is weekly rhythm for continuous improvement. And that is what we call our better every week framework. Now, ChatGPT and I were working on this together and I got Chat to double check for me. What we do here is from the Scrum methodology. So you may have never heard of Scrum or you may have heard of Scrum, which is within Agile. This is like a framework that was created by somebody very clever and it's used all around the world, but particularly in big corporations who realized that they weren't as agile as the little guys and they wanted to be a big corporation that was more agile because they realized that was a risk and they needed to mitigate that risk. And so they came up with this system called Agile Management, I think. And within that, there's this Scrum methodology, and part of that is team rhythm meetings. Okay, so let me explain what it is and why it's number 5 in this kind of 5 points of practice management mastery. So it's very simple and actually it's reasonably easy. I often say simple doesn't mean easy, but basically there is a beautiful rhythm that you can set up with meetings to manage your team. And it works whether you've got 1 on the team or more like 10 on the team, whatever it is. It works no matter where your staff are, whether they're in your office or they work from home, etc. And you can actually tweak it and ramp it up and down according to what works for you, okay? So that's a bit on the what, because we're going to say what and why and how. So what and how first? Basically, you want to have a week in retro meeting that would normally happen on a Friday, a week ahead meeting that would normally happen on a Monday, and then a daily, very fast meeting that happens as well. Now, in my practice, we just have the week ahead and the week in retro on the same day. And we haven't found that we needed to keep going with the daily meeting. So we called that our 7-minute stand-up meeting. Just going to sit on the what a little bit more before we go into the why. So the other part of that we have is we have a Google sheet, like a spreadsheet. and it's called Better Every Week. And in there, any of the team can go in. So we have meetings on a Monday, right? And throughout the week, we don't interrupt each other for things that aren't business critical. Okay. We're very productive. We're very efficient. We have our head down, uninterrupted work. So let's say you see something that is not working 100% in the business, then you can go into the Better Every Week sheet and you can fill it in there. So you can say, here's what I found. Here's what I think needs to be improved. Here's who I think should be handling the improvement of that, like my suggestion, and so on. And then on a Monday, when we look at the week in retro, as well as the week ahead, we look at any items that have come up. And I'm thinking about, we had a client that was unhappy about this income tax component of his lodgement. And even though we have no control over it, my right hand looked at what could we do in the future to just try and keep a happy client happy. So even when something is not our fault or it's not totally in our control, because we are very accountable for everything, we look at what is in our control. What can we do? Okay. So what's in our control to make the client experience as optimal as possible. And I just love that in a situation where none of it was our fault, my right hand, Joe McMahon, still looked at the Better Every Week process and our standard operating procedures to see what could be changed and tweaked and improved to improve the customer experience. So that's what we do. We look to improve the customer experience by tweaking ever so slightly our standard operating procedures or finding what we call the kink in the system. In that example, Joe will say, I found a kink in the system. We could have done this and that would have led to a better client outcome. Okay. We've had situations where we literally, we'll miss a deadline. Okay. It happens. These kind of things happen to the best of the best. The point is, what do you do to make sure that doesn't happen again? We sometimes fully involve the client. We tell them exactly what we found and what we're doing to ensure it never happens again, as well as apologizing. And it's so meaningful to the client. So we've talked about the what. Now let's talk about the why. Why is this Better Every Week framework amazing and so important? And why does it come after standard operating procedures and lead and manage? Number one, because standard operating procedures need to be policed and managed, etc. So when you have your staff, your team, and they're using your SOPs, you actually need a way to ensure that they are using them right and that you are looking at all the outcomes and like the key performance indicators. Okay, that's the fancy phrase that we would use. Ultimately, you need to manage. And this is a way to manage easily. It's also something called team reports to team. So I don't have to get involved in any of this because the team is self-reporting to the team. So in terms of why, it will reduce the amount of time and energy you have to put into managing. And if you don't already know, managing is a time-sucking nightmare that nobody enjoys, okay? It basically means for us, we have about an hour on a Monday, and it's all we need to do to have everyone managed beautifully. So it saves us potentially 14 hours a week. Like I have literally seen bookkeepers, and personally I have experiences where you can lose hours every day on management, and this stops that. Okay. You are efficient and you manage your team beautifully with like a 10th of the time or less. So the second thing that it does is it allows you to continually improve your standard operating procedures. And that means you're going to get better client outcomes, improve client experience, improve client satisfaction, and improve your retention. We talk about hiring slowly and firing fast. This is going to help you identify any time wasters and yo-yos on your team. If you've never heard me say that before, refer to my first book, The Systems and Team chapters. Okay, so in team, you'll get a full explanation of that. But it allows you to quickly identify and fire time wasters and yo-yos that will kill your business. It allows you to support your team. So when you look at the week in retro, what went well? What needs to be improved? So support your team. When you look at the week ahead, what do you need? Do you have everything you need to succeed in the week ahead? That removes excuses, okay? It removes all the excuses. And again, this last point It really is the one that brings it all together, keeps it all together. And if I use an example of my practice, this is one of the ones that allows us to keep those clients forever. So really great client retention, even though we are much higher fees than anyone else. And that adds up to that profitable, sustainable bookkeeping practice. So that's why this is such an important part of that practice management mastery and how to run a bookkeeping practice like a well-oiled machine. This number 5, Better Every Week framework ties it all together. That's all included in the Done For You standard operating procedures that we give you inside the transformation program. I'll give you a heads up that we are considering how we might be able to provide that as a standalone product. At the moment, you just need to get it inside our signature transformation program. And the participants of the transformation program tell me that the Done For You standard operating procedures are worth more than the program fee in total. Because that last headliner was quite big and juicy, I'll just summarize. So you want to have a Better Every Week framework, quite simply to be better every week. That's what we need, continual improvement, okay? And that is a weekly rhythm or a team rhythm that comes from the Agile framework and the Scrum methodology in order to manage your team more efficiently, much more easily, to ensure that really important thing, which is that your client is winning all the time, okay? Win for the client first, win for the client first. So there you have it, the 5 essentials to running your bookkeeping practice like a well-oiled machine. Let's just wrap them up now by going through them again. So number 1, productivity that powers profit, because we're talking about winning the work. Number 2, capacity management, live and die by your diary. Number 3, standard operating procedures that actually work. Number 4, lead and manage, don't just be nice. Number 5, weekly rhythm, which is our Better Every Week framework for continuous improvement. I will see you, my friend, in the next episode. Okay, my friend, now it is time to take action. So what are you going to do with what you learned today? The way I see it, you've got 2 options. You can go it alone to try and save some money, or you can back yourself and go for it and join my tribe. And let me tell you, we are knocking it out of the ballpark. That's not a sales pitch. That is me serving you, dare I say, courageously. To find success, I 100% know you need the mechanics, which is like the keys to the kingdom, but you also need to get your mindset right and be super productive. And these are all things I help you with inside the program. I could go on about this forever because I really want this for you. Have a prosperous week, and I'll see you in the next episode.